Hey everyone, welcome back to another Mattel Jurassic World Dominion review. Today we're going to take a look at the new Fierce Pack, Moros intrepidus. Just like many of you, I've been traveling from store to store to try to find some Dominion figures before that street date of April 17th. I really haven't found much yet. I found a couple of the legacy sets at Target, but really the only thing I've seen is the new T-Rex, which was previously reviewed on the channel at one of my Walmarts. You know, I'm pretty lucky. I have like 3 Walmarts within like 15 minutes of each other, so it's kind of easy for me to hit the stores. But the one Walmart I found the T-Rex at, I went in there today and they were just jam loaded with Dominion figures. They had all the Fierce packs, they had that new Capture and Crush vehicle, they had the Own and Clear human packs. So I walked out of there today spending a pretty penny, and it feels good to find these figures early. I missed the hype when Fallen Kingdom came out. I've always been a huge Jurassic fan, but I gave up on collecting the toys once Hasbro took over with Jurassic Park 3. I just didn't like the way the toys look, and I kind of just more focused on my accurate dinosaur collecting. And then Fallen Kingdom rolls around, and you know, one of my friends sends me a Mosasaurus figure, and I was instantly hooked. It was like a couple months after Fallen Kingdom came out, and that's when I jumped on the board, the Mattel bandwagon. So yeah, if you're still looking for these figures, Walmart, they are not register locked. If you find these at Target, they're gonna, it's locked at the register. You can't purchase them to the 17th. So wish everyone luck looking for them. So let's jump into this review. We only got a couple more days, and everyone can, pretty much get their hands on these figures. So getting back to this little dinosaur right here, Moros has become quite popular recently in the Jurassic community. That's because this little fellow showed up for a brief few seconds in the Jurassic World Prologue that showed up on YouTube a couple months ago. Everyone's really excited. It's a fully feathered dinosaur, and we're excited that we're getting a Moros figure. And then Mattel shows us this thing right here. So yeah, I am not really happy with this figure, but it is a new species in the Jurassic line. I always make it a point to pick up the new species, but I don't even have it out of the package yet, and I'm just really not super happy with it. Now, an interesting thing about the Fierce packs, they are a combination of the Attack, Wild packs, Savage Strike, Fierce Force figures, all meshed together in one line now, which is good. It saves on shelf space. You don't have to, retailers don't have to worry about carrying 2 lines of very similar figures. And the difference with these are they don't have action feature. They're kind of similar to the Attack packs with just a little bit more articulation. And personally, I really don't care about the action features, but it's nice to see that there will be more retail space for these figures to be displayed. Now let's go over the packaging really quick. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the figure, and I don't like the new style packaging for the Fierce Force. The figures just look really like naked and exposed. All that's holding them in is these 2 little strings right here. And all you need to do is do snippy snip and throw this in your pocket and walk out the door. Not that I'm condoning that. I'm just saying probably some of us are going to see some empty packages hanging on the shelf really soon. So you got the Jurassic World Dominion logo down here. You got a nice picture of Rexy taking off this side of the packaging. You got a helicopter overhead because obviously the dinosaurs are loose on the mainland. You got the Fierce Pack logo for Moros intrepidus, and then turning it around, you get a picture of the other figures in this wave. I picked up the Marigaya, Moros, and the Sungaripterus. I'll get it right when I review the figure. Blue, no way. I'm not picking it up. I do my best to avoid blue figures. All I really need is 1 for my collection, and I've been doing a pretty good job. I only have 3, even though there's like 50 of them. Picture right here of how the DNA code works, and that is it for the packaging. Let's crack this figure open and take a closer look. All right, let's start on this 360-degree view of Moros intrepidus. Fun fact, this is one of the very, very few figures in the Mattel line that actually include this full species name on the packaging. Obviously, Tyrannosaurus Rex is, that's pretty much the same for everybody. And the only other figure I can think of is the Seat's Mikarurum. So yeah, pretty cool that they included that on there. As for the sculpt, it's an interesting figure to say the least. They kind of half-ass feathered it. You just have like double row of feathers on top of the head that goes all the way down to about the end of the tail. Barely any paint apps on here. It's, we're back to that 2-tone nonsense. We just got orange and white. And the other thing that just drives me nuts about this figure, those white arms. I hate it. I can't stand it. It's the worst thing ever since the Crouching Raptor. A couple figures sport the white arms, and it just looks really bad. It just breaks up the whole profile of the figure. You know, the Allosaurus came with it, and it looks like one or two of the Trossoraptors are coming out with white arms, and it just looks really, really bad. Just, you know, make it green and paint the claws. You know, this is the third film in the Jurassic World franchise. Come on, Mattel, put a little bit more effort into your figures. Yes, I gave you a lot of passes during Primal Attack and Dino Escape because Dominion got pushed. But this is it. This is the time that everyone's going to be looking at your figures because a big movie's coming out. Put a little extra love into them, please. All right, let's do a couple quick measurements. This figure is 7.5 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the head and about 3 inches tall to the top of the head. So Moros was a very, very small Tyrannosaur species, just about 4 feet long, and I think they were about around 5 feet high. So with those measurements, I put this figure roughly in that 120 scale range. All right, let's zoom and take a look at some of the finer details on this figure, starting with the head. Typical for a Jurassic franchise style dinosaur, very shrink wrap. You can see the inorbital fenestra and the orbit clearly. Eye is painted in yellow with a black pupil. That is a plus. You know, one of my bigger complaints with some of the figures is they paint the iris but leave the pupil blank, and it would just be the base plastic underneath. So it's nice to see that they actually, you know, dip into that big old budget and just applying that little dot of black paint to make the figure look a little bit better. The teeth are goofy and oversized, pretty typical for most figures in the line. The lower jaw is cast in a white plastic. The teeth are actually pretty much nicely painted, really no sloppy paint on mine. And inside the mouth, nice glossy coat with the tongue, gums, and back of the throat. Roof of the mouth is not painted. And then going down to the other side, I have a nice printed eye on both sides. Pretty rare these days. You have a double mohawk of feathers starting at the top. There is some really nice scale detail over the figures. That is a compliment I do give Mattel. They've really gotten great at the texturing of their figures. Not so much on the feathers. Maybe they'll get there someday. I doubt it, but I really wish the feathers were painted to highlight them. They just, you know, it just looks weird. I just wish there was a few more paint apps on here. You know, just get a little frustrated with the line sometimes, and I just wish they just put a little extra care in these figures because they sell extremely well. You know, we're fans of them. We're not buying them because they're super accurate, because most of the figures aren't. We're buying them because we're fans of the franchise, and, you know, we like cool dinosaur toys. I just wish they just put a tiny bit more effort into them. Underneath the throat, you do have some white paint, and the white paint just ends right at the chest area, going down to those godforsaken bone white arms. I hate it. I can't stand it. I know a lot of people don't like it, and it just doesn't look right. It might look a little bit better if there was, like, you know, they had a little paint apps and just transitioned the color onto the shoulder, but obviously that's never going to happen. Hand claws are not painted. Going down to the body, you have another paint of orange that continues right to the base of the tail. You can see accidentally they got a little bit of paint on the feathers, so I guess there is a little bit of paint on them. Going down to the feet, toe claws are not painted in, but you do have some nice texturing and muscle detail all over the feet. And let's turn the figure to the side and pop up the DNA code that is really hard to get to because the feathers are in the way. Let me just zoom out a little bit. There is the DNA code. If you want to scan into the Facts app, I think this is part of the reason why we're not going to see action features on like these Ferocious pack dinosaurs, because this, you know, new gimmick does take up space inside the body. It'd be pretty tough to get a working mechanism in there on a figure this small. And then going down to the tail, it just turns over to yellow. But you can see right here they accidentally painted just a little bit past the base of the tail. They must have blew their entire budget with this figure with the paint app going onto the tail. Then those feathers just turned to orange. It would have been nice if they, you know, if they stuck with the green. I think the tail should have been painted green and then the feathers highlighted in orange all the way down the body. I think that would have been a much nicer look on this figure. Let's get the camera to stop getting out of focus, but you do have some like fine texturing on the tail. So all in all, you know, it's an okay figure. I'm happy that it's a new species, but I think it could have been done much better. And let's just go over articulation quick before we go over comparisons. The mouth can open up really wide. You do have a hinge joint right here that allows the head to go down and up a little bit and rotate 360 degrees. Front arms can move forwards and backwards. This arm right here is completely stuck, and I feel like if I force it, I'm going to break the peg off that holds it to the body. So it feels like it's either really tight or it got glued in there. I don't know what's going on with it, but you know, I don't really need to pose this thing too much. Hind legs can move forwards and backwards, and they have that nice locking point to keep the feet in that neutral position. And then going down to the tail, we have that incredibly useless rotating tail joint. Just add a hinge joint, for the love of God, Mattel, so the tails can swing side to side. That'll make a lot of people happy. Moving on with comparisons, here it is with Roland Tembo, and you can see this Moros is just a little bit too big to scale with the human figures. You know, if you want a nice, accurate looking, articulated Moros figure, I highly suggest you checking out the Beast of the Mesozoic Moros, which is coming out in a year or so. You know, it's a beautifully fully feathered figure that has, you know, Amber Collection levels of articulation. And next, here it is with the Velociraptor from the Kitchen Encounter pack. And let's do a Mega Destroyer comparison. Here it is with the Pentaceratops. And lastly, here it is with its Tyrannosaur relatives. One thing Mattel has been really good at, they've been giving us awesome species variety in the line, and that I do love. So we have the new Dominion Rex, Battle Damage Albertosaurus, Tarbosaurus, Allioramos, and Proceratosaurus. So yeah, you have a nice little you know, Tyrannosaur family tree going on if you want to display them all together. So final thoughts on Moros here. I'm excited that we actually have a Moros figure, but I think the figure is a big letdown, especially for me and a lot of other people, because we saw that awesome rendition in the Prologue trailer, and we expected a figure that looks similar to that, and it looks nothing like it. The proportions are weird. The paint apps are very sparse. Like I said, it's Dominion now, Mattel. Time to step it up a notch and make these figures better. You know, they haven't been terrible with everything. Really excited for the Hammond collection coming out, but they definitely need to add a couple more paint apps to their figures. I'm not a big fan of the mohawk feathers on it. You know, very sparsely feathered for an animal that should be completely covered in feathers, but it's a new species and it's going to be a hot item because we all want to add the new species to our collections. So I can see it being kind of hard to find once it gets a full release. So that will do it for the review. I have a ton of other Dominion stuff that I need to get to, and I still haven't even found it all yet. So expect a lot of Jurassic World Dominion reviews on the channel in the next couple weeks. Still have some new Collect Day figures reviews that I will sprinkle in between for those of you that are not into the Jurassic stuff. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.